In the past few months, most of the conversation surrounding a coronavirus vaccine has focused on one big question. Will researchers develop a successful vaccine in record time? But maybe it's time we start asking another question. Will enough Americans actually get the vaccine for it to be effective? Scientists estimate that at least 60% of the population would need to be vaccinated to squash the pandemic, but the polls are looking grim. In early May, 55% of Americans said they would get a vaccine when available, but that number, it shrank to 42% in late July. It's the smallest number to date. So what does this mean in our fight against coronavirus? Let's bring in our panel to discuss. Joining me now is Dean Finelli, a pharmaceutical expert and partner in the intellectual property department of Seyfarth Shaw. Also David Dodd, a vaccine expert and CEO of Geovax. And David, we'll start with you. At least 60% of the population needs to be vaccinated. If that's the case, you know, that number, it depends on so many factors, including whether people are actually willing to take the vaccine.
Absolutely. It's one of the most critical issues we're dealing with, much more so, frankly, at this stage than the technical issues and what's going on in the development of vaccine. This is where a massive educational campaign needs to start right away. It's going to take many, many months to educate individuals about the need for the vaccine, about the need for widespread adoption of the vaccine by individuals, and also to help them understand the degree of efficacy that is anticipated, and also what does it mean to say that there are side effects. I mean, a slight fever occurs with so many different drugs and vaccines and all. That is not a reason to not accept a vaccine, but this is critical. We need to be educating the general public.
And another reason I'm concerned about is potentially if a vaccine would be required for people to even return back to work or return back to school. You know, it makes you wonder if that would be a valid enough reason to enforce that people get this vaccine, or as you say, they should just be made more aware about potential outcomes from taking it.
Exactly. Human nature is to be suspicious until you have all the facts. We never have all the facts, but we need to recognize that the only way to overcome this pandemic is to certainly have vaccines and then to see widespread adoption. And for people to accept that, we're going to have to educate. We have to inform. And we have to do that over and over again. There's not too much education that can occur. We need to really start this effort immediately. CDC, public health officials, business people, all of us need to start the discussions.
Dean, I want to talk to you and get your perspective here, because let's talk about how these pharmaceutical companies, they receive protection from future liability claims related to COVID vaccine. What's really the situation here and potentially the outcome that they could face if for some reason there is an issue with the vaccine?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Under the PrEP Act, which is the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, during an emergency situation, as we're in now, these companies that are developing a vaccine and vaccines that come on the market, they will be immunized from liability. And if you think about it, that's what we want. We don't want, you know, we're in a public health crisis. We don't want a situation where these companies that have the ability to develop a vaccine are saying, whoa, I'm not going to do it because, you know, I'm concerned about the liability, especially when we're moving so quickly, and typically you're talking a decade or so to develop a vaccine. Here, hopefully, we're doing it within the course of a year. So there is a trust fund that's available to people that are injured if they receive the vaccine. But generally, the companies that are working on these vaccine candidates will be immunized once a vaccine comes on the market.
And as you mentioned, we are going so quickly through this process. David, I mean, you'd have experience into how long it actually takes to find a vaccine of this nature. Are you concerned that we're moving too quick?
I'm not concerned that we're moving too quick. I'm concerned, if anything, on a couple of fronts. One is that perhaps we're placing the bets all upon unproven technology, the RNA. Now, it has some benefits in terms of being able to move quickly, but it is untested in terms of what it may actually cause from side effects, and will it require boosters? I mean, people will not be interested in getting a vaccine that they have to have 3 boosters or an additional booster and then go back every year and go through the same regimen. I think what we need to do is widen the investments in terms of the types of vaccines And I think the other thing that creates suspicion is when people start hearing about the massive profits that some companies are going to derive from this. So some companies such as ourselves at Geovax, we've made a pledge going back to early March where we will accept only a marginal profit at best. We want to cover our costs and make a little bit of profit. Our goal with this is to defeat the pandemic and to ensure widespread availability. So I think those are the areas we need to work on. I don't think we're going too fast. We have 6 years into 6 months in many ways, and that's unprecedented. But I think we have to continue to stay abreast and understand and do all the necessary testing. But also we need to build confidence, and that's not just on the science. That's on how we act. And when you've got companies that are multiple $billion, $60 billion companies, they're talking about making big profits. We shouldn't be accepting that.
Yeah, and again, 42% of Americans said that they would feel comfortable taking that vaccine at this point. So there is some work to be done if people were planning to increase that number. David Dodd, Dean Finelli, thank you for coming on today. We appreciate it.